Started. I call this meeting of the Conroe Independent School District Board of Trustees Audit Committee and Investment Committee to order. Because a quorum of the board is present, although we don't have that right now, anyone who is registered or would like to make a public comment on items posted on our committee's agenda, you are welcome to do so at this time. All right. We will continue on then with consider approval of the minutes of the prior meeting of May 12th. Those were included in our board book. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval of minutes as presented.
All right, and second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? And all those opposed? Thank you, that's approved. All right, next item is receive update on fiscal year 2021 plan, audit plan. Mr. Hayden, good morning.
Good morning. Chairman Sanders, members of the Audit Committee, Dr. Knoll, guests, welcome back. It's been since May since we've had a chance to talk, and I'm excited today. Got a lot to cover, and so we'll get right to it. There we go. So finishing off the 2021 audit plan, we did a critical spreadsheet. The nice thing is there are not a lot of critical spreadsheets within CISD, not like in the corporate world, where there are hundreds of them, especially for SOX work. We found that it was mostly in HR and finance, and they were all well secured, that really the people that were supposed to have access had access. We just did a suggestion that they should add an extra layer of security by restricting the folders where the critical spreadsheets lie, not just the drive. Mm-hmm. So that was really the only finding that we had from it. I think we came up with something like 25 total critical spreadsheets. Any questions on that one? Band instruments, our favorite subject. So we did another inventory in May, and we gave everyone until August, mid-August, to try to find anything that was missing, update their charms. So as of August, these are the final numbers. We added 10 instruments worth $26,000. We deleted 32. Now, these were missing from that original September, and they just had not been removed from charms. So these weren't additional missing. They were counted in that first audit. And that was $174,000. And then we did have an additional 8 missing items that were $45,000. But overall, much better. We're getting there. And Dr. Horton's here if you have any questions for him on this.
Of the 8 missing, Dr. Horton, I mean, what's the resolution or the potential resolution? Is it just that they need to be deleted from the inventory?
We believe so. What we've discovered in this process is that there was a lot of swapping going on between campuses, and that did not result in the kind of accountability that we now have in place.
Okay.
I think that's a fair way to say one part of it. Another part of it is that we had a lot of mobility this past year in our kids, and there were times that the directors knew the instruments were not there, and they attempted to contact those kids and parents, but there's only a limited amount of resolution you can have. So there are multiple ways that you can look at it, but I can assure you that this year we are in a completely different place than we were a year ago with the individual school accountability, and also at both the high school and the junior high. And while this is characterized band instruments, it also involves orchestra instruments. And so of the 6 high school band, 6 high school orchestra, 13 junior high, or 7 junior high and 7 junior high orchestra and band each, So of all those programs, we were down to, I think, 2 programs that didn't complete all the count on time. And in both cases, those were where we had director transitions, so we gave a little extra attention to them. So all that is to say, while that's probably too long an answer to your question, we do feel like we're in a completely different place now. And then having the accountability level of the campus administrator involved as well has proven to be very enlightening to everyone. So
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
It
if there are
did,
any
yes.
others, I'd be happy to answer those.
Just one question.
Yes.
So the 8 missing represent the 8 that were discovered as part of the audit? Are there additional missing that were self-reported and just taken off the inventory, do you know?
Go ahead, Brian. Yeah, go ahead. If you don't mind, Brian's actually got the spreadsheet. Go ahead, Brian.
So the 8 missing were identified as part of the audit activity, right?
Correct.
Were there additional missing that were self-reported and taken off the inventory prior to the audit? Do we have more missing than just were on the audit
No,
that we just
No.
lost?
no,
Okay,
that was just part of the inventory, and,
okay.
but like Dr. Horton says, we're a totally different place than we were a year ago. We've got the processes in place now. And hopefully, when we come back and do this again next May, that'll be the next inventory, we will have 0. I mean, that's my hope, but you're dealing with humans and kids and all that, so, but I
Putting a
know that.
process in makes a huge difference, though.
Yes,
It sounds
exactly.
like now you have a good accountability process.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we do. Thank you.
Looking at those 8 missing and the dollar value, we're somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 average per instrument. So we're not talking cymbal stands and stuff. We're talking
Right.
marimbas and tubas and.
We're actually primarily, I think, talking about large brass instruments. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't count like the stands and
Right.
chairs and the low dollar things like that, like wood blocks. So it's just the instruments.
And it is primarily the large brass
Right.
instruments. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. All right. Any other questions on the band instruments? We completed all the activity fund audits. All right. So next thing I want to move to is the internal audit structure. So I'm excited about this. As you know, we've been using Weaver to help us with some of the audits that we've done. They've been, one-off helps. And I have Brandon Tanis here. He's the partner from Weaver. If y'all have any questions going forward that he can answer.
Okay.
I can say we have, again, a great partnership with Weaver. They've been incredibly helpful up to this point, so I'm excited about this proposal. So, you know what Weaver gives it. They give us experienced resources for targeted audits. I don't need Weaver to help me do follow-ups. I don't need Weaver to help me do the construction audits. I need them to help me with the big audits that we, where it was just me before. So the other thing that this does, this allows us to do IT audits on an annual basis, something we've never done here. So it also means we don't have to hire an additional auditor. We all know that's a roll of the dice anytime you hire somebody. It would also be extremely difficult to find somebody within our pay scale that has IT audit experience as well. The other thing that Weaver's been great on is just providing help with work programs. Again, we had never done like police audits, the transportation. They've helped to build those work programs and get that library. So going forward, that will become less. So the proposed budget for this is $90,000. And IA will pay for this. As I mentioned before, we don't need to hire an additional senior auditor. So we're just assuming that's gonna be an 80,000 salary, 15% benefits, 92,000. My admin, left on maternity leave and has decided not to come back. We're not gonna refill that position. That saves us $39,000 a year. So even with bringing in Weaver, we're actually saving money for the district by this arrangement. And the big thing is, we don't need to increase the internal audit budget. We're just spending the dollars more efficiently. So the arrangement will be, internal audit is still responsible at the end of the day for the reports, the work project, and managing the arrangement. We'll work with Weaver to ensure we've got the right resources. And again, IA will be responsible for preparation of audit reports and the files. We're actually going to use the space where my admin used to be to have a little office for Weaver when they're here working, so that works out really well. Like I said, at the end of the day, this takes us up to where our peer districts are in terms of what internal audit can offer. You know, now we can do that full range of audits. We can add that IT, which is big. As you'll see in the audit plan for next year, we've got an IT general controls audit proposed. Hasn't been done since 2008. So these are things that need to happen. Again, we're not spending extra dollars, we're just spending them more efficiently. So what I'd like, is the audit committee to approve this new structure as the formal arrangement going forward. Do y'all have any questions for Weaver or myself?
Ms. Chase?
Yeah. Will Weaver, is the plan to have the same staff auditors working on all the audits for Conroe ISD?
Good morning.
Hi.
So definitely depending on the audit and the topic and what the skills are needed, we assess that and meet with Brian to talk about what those needs are. Currently, our structure has been consultation between myself and partner Dan Graves out of Austin, who both have extensive school district and government experience. And we've had staff augmentation, which has been the primary use of a senior auditor from our group who has that experience also. But in the case of the IT general controls audit that's coming up, that is primarily part of our IT advisory services group that has a special skill set. And so any type of audit that we are looking for to do, we will evaluate that skill set to see who needs to be part of that. That was definitely a conversation that Brian and I talked about in our existing arrangement has been, we will provide that staff augmentation and consultation, but we will assess what resources are needed and to add those to each project. So for consistency, we would like to have the same senior working on that to help build rapport and ensure the knowledge of the district. But if there is a skill set needed, we will bring that in.
I mean, that's one of the benefits of having an internal audit department is that insider knowledge, that experience, that kind of like in the game perspective. So just want to make sure we somehow can replicate that or still achieve that even using an external service.
I didn't hear the question.
Well, and I think the point there is Brian would still be involved, to bring that piece. It's how do we bring in that outside IT, for example, expertise, and then combine it with Brian's internal knowledge. I think that's the, if I understand the arrangement correctly, it's not Brian. It's not our internal audit trying to hand it to Weaver. It's to be working side by side. So hopefully we maintain that internal knowledge that you speak of.
Yeah, so I'll be working side by side with the senior. I mean, we'll go out and do the interviews together and divide up the work program. And so what Weaver's providing is a resource that for those targeted audits where I need the help.
So what about audits where we're not utilizing Weaver?
So that would be like the follow-up audits,
Mhm.
and the construction audits.
And for that, we don't need additional staff in
No.
internal audit to maintain
Not for those. I can handle
independence
those on my
and,
own.
okay. And you mentioned this is similar now to peer districts.
Correct.
So most of our peer districts utilize external audit to,
A couple of them are co-sourced, and then a few of them are just total internal, but they have a lot bigger departments. So they've got three or four additional auditors besides the director. And again,
If I'm not mistaken, Brian, if I may, if I'm not mistaken, I think KDISD is completely external. All their internal audits is externally handled by their outside auditors.
and then I think Fort Bend is co-sourced. I have that, and I can send that to you, about where our peer districts stand in terms of how many people they've got and, what type of structure they have. But at the end of the day, for, this going into my third audit season, I believe this is the best fit for Conroe ISD internal audit in terms of skill set that we need, budget. I think it all just works, and if going forward, we feel like we need more people, we'll address it at that point. But, I feel that this is going to work, and this is gonna provide the audit committee and Conroe ISD with the best return for their dollar from internal audit.
Anyone else comments?
I mean, I may have a little bit of bias here, but, coming from internal audit in my day job, but I mean, I believe in the value of a strong and robust internal audit department. And so that's just my 2 cents, yeah.
I would just add that when Mr. Hayden and Dr. Null and I met in December and did Mr. Hayden's performance review, I asked the direct question of Mr. Hayden, do we need to hire additional staff? And I was very pleased with his answer, which is, I feel confident that I can perform the duties of internal auditor with some help from co-sourcing outside. Could we hire another internal auditor? Probably, as he's arranged here, at that cost, and I might even challenge that cost.
Right.
It's probably a little bit low. So in consideration, we're gaining a very valuable co-source partner, in my opinion, who has worked with our district, understands our district. So in effect, I kind of looked at it as we've got now the best of both worlds, where we've got our certified internal auditor and CPA, we've got external competent people who can come in and help provide assistance in areas that maybe need more expertise than we may have on staff. And I'm not saying Mr. Hayden's not competent, he certainly is, but very expert. I mean, our own company, we hire external IT resources to help manage some, there's very particular nuances of different departments, projects, things such as that. And so I find this a great alternative to having to hire additional staff, because we're not paying them for paid time off. We're not paying them for retirement. We're paying them a salary through this co-source arrangement, and they're going to be here. Someone will be here when we need them to be here. The question I had really to you, sir, is more about the independence, because if you can just address that, because we know that Weaver also does our consolidated annual financial report, if you can just kind of address how that works, co-sourcing independent, internal audit, and then maintaining the independence for the external.
Definitely, and that is something that Weaver has an established program for quality assurance and risk management. Your partner over your financial audit, Sarah Roberts, I communicate with her very regularly. And we look at those boundaries legally. We look at those to make sure there is independence. I think one of the key areas is that when you look at Brian's structure, he is still overseeing the internal audit function. We are not making management decisions. We are not directing what findings or his results. How that happens is, of course, when we talk about our consultation and staff augmentation, is we provide, such as we talked about, work programs. We provide sample work programs. These are things you can consider. We don't direct any of those decisions to keep the independence. Now, if we were doing a true, I would say, outsourced internal audit model, we would be the ones presenting those results, discussing those results, and so forth. Definitely the IT one that's coming up, because you do have an IT aspect to your annual financial audit. We've had those discussions internally, also with the partner over that, with Sarah, to talk about that independence and what boundaries. What we won't audit is anything that would be related to your annual financial audit. We would have to excuse ourselves. That's something that we also look at with our internal counsel and evaluating that arrangement. All of our projects have to go through that to be evaluated for independence. And definitely when those come up, that was one of the key, when we started talking to Brian about the IT audit coming up, is we had to evaluate that independence and to make sure that there would not be any barriers to that or impediments to that independence. So it is something that we evaluate on every project. When you're talking about a staff augmentation, it's a little easier because really that resource is just working for Brian and working the audit program as he intends. And then definitely on our consultation side, providing guidance. Usually it's best practices. This is what we've seen out there. This is some good, helpful websites. This is areas that you can use in that audit, such as getting ready for the police audit that he's going to be kicking off. We provided him some of those consultation, and again, we have the different backgrounds, much like Brian said. So for myself, even a police audit background, I've done that for many years, and providing that. So it's not directing the audit. It's not telling them what findings and how that report should be, but providing that consultation. So that's how we keep the independence, but also our internal quality assurance and risk management procedures, which do evaluate that on every project basis for arrangements where we do have both a financial audit relationship and any type of co-sourced internal audit. And I will say that we've done this for other school districts. One of the largest ones that I've worked on definitely was Dallas ISD, that had a very large internal audit shop, but we actually did both a procurement evaluation and an IT evaluation. And so we've done both of those, working with the internal audit group there, presenting those results. In the end, that was still management, internal audit management's decisions on what results would be reported, how that would be reported, and so forth.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Two-part question for either Mr. Hayden or Mr. Rice. I don't know who needs to address it. And I've been on this committee for 5 years, and this question in no way is a reflection on Weaver. I've seen their results for 5 years and have every confidence in their ability to perform for us. But did we look at other partners? They're not the only auditing firm that could provide this for us. Did we look at this competitively? Is there somebody else? Do we compare rates with anybody else? I'm just trying to be steward of our money here.
Yeah,
And is this arrangement being made through any of our cooperative buying programs, through Buy Board, through ESC 6, anything like that,
Yeah,
where there may be some competition?
Yeah, auditing services is one of those items that you really can't bid price.
Okay.
But it is something you can bid qualifications. To my knowledge, we did not go out and do a request for qualifications for this particular outsourcing of the, of this piece of internal audit. So, we feel confident in the arrangement that Mr. Hayden has started with little pieces, of assistance from Weaver. I think we started with a $20,000 budget to begin with and they did a very good job. We feel very comfortable in that piece. So it's just grown since then.
Thank you. All right. So this is really just a rearrangement of your budget and
Correct.
adding a co-source. I'm not sure we even require any type of approval, Ms. Gladys? No? Okay, all right.
Can I just ask one last question?
Absolutely.
The 90,000, what exactly does that represent? Like how many audits or how many people or what?
Oh, great. So the 90,000, the way we have the current engagement letter structure is 90,000 gets you at a blended about 165 rate. So that's about 330 hours or so, 350 hours with the 90,000. So what that does, basically, we work with Brian to say, this is your budget for that period. If you have about 350 hours at 90,000, and you can allocate that as needed. So we always look at that as hours, but also weeks. So do you have about 8 weeks of time for a staff to be able to use? And so That's if you're looking at 40 hours. And definitely we monitor that and work with Brian to say, how do you want to reallocate those resources for that time? So that's how we look at it. It's not on a particular audit. When we did the first agreement, we did do it by, we're going to go do these two, help you with these two audits. But on the last one, or this current one, it is going to be open so that Brian has the flexibility to be able to use resources as needed.
In the IT audit that you know specifically mentioned, how many hours approximately would that represent?
So we provided Brian a couple options this last week, and there was about 4 different options that was being evaluated for that, depending on the extensiveness of that IT audit. I think the one proposed was about 300 hours to do that.
It was actually around 150.
Around 150 hours, right?
Just for that one audit. So that was the recommended, and so, yeah, that's gonna be the big audit for the year in terms of hours. But then I also have then another 200 hours for a couple other audits, one larger, one smaller. So, and looking at what I needed, and plus, you know, I'm gonna be out there working myself. I feel like this is enough hours to cover what we need. You know, again, at the end of the year, we'll reevaluate. Was the hours right? Was it too little, too much? But we'll be able to have a better picture of that once. You know, it's like they say, no battle plan survives the first audit. So we'll see, you know, once we get to the end of the year, if those estimates were correct. But I believe they are.
Other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Hayden.
Okay. So the proposed audit plan for 21-22, you can see our risk assessment results and where these have fallen in the audit plans. Green is this year, yellow is we were audited last year. I do want to bring up child nutrition. I know it's high up there, but in discussions with management, we felt like a big part of that audit was going to be cash controls. Now that we're going to the free breakfast and lunch, we just decided to allocate the internal audit hours somewhere else. And you'll see where we chose. The proposed activity funds, as always, are all the high schools, and then schools that we did not hit last year. So operational audits, the police department, athletics. The police department's going to be the big one, and that's the one again where Weaver was indispensable because Brandon had that police background and helping to prepare the work program was so helpful. The construction audit will be the teaching training center closeout. That'll be, again, the police department will be first. Then we'll kind of do athletics. Like I'll go to some of the football games and see how the cash is collected and accounted for. So that'll be kind of a year-long audit for at least the cash part. The teacher training center, that'll be, once that closes out next spring. And then again, the follow-up audits that just all do band instruments, PEEMS, hopefully we'll have a somewhat normal year to do the PEEMS follow-up and the transportation audit follow-up. The proposed IT audit, again, is the IT general controls, last performed in 2008. So that's going to be a big one. You can see all the different areas that they'll be hitting. And then our administrative that we do. And so that is it for the audit plan. Any questions on that?
I assume that would require a formal approval
Yes.
of this committee.
It's our
Any
most
questions,
ambitious-
comments regarding this year's audit work plan?
Yes, I have a few questions. First of all, on the activity funds, I know this year there was quite a few findings, like from the activity funds that you, audits y'all did on cash receipts and stuff.
Right.
So does the activity fund audit activity for this year represent going back to some of those schools, or an increase in the number of schools that we would audit, or it's just standard
It's just
status quo?
Yeah, so it's just, it'll be the same number of schools as last year. Any schools that were particularly bad there'll be follow-up audits for those. We had a couple meetings with the financial secretaries a couple months back, and reiterated about cash receipts, filling out the forms, using the correct form. So we've definitely talked to all of them and showed them the findings from last year, and hopefully, we'll have some better results this year on that one aspect. But one of the things that we do in our methodology is if we go in and we test and we find a bunch of fails, we increase our samples. So, we do that with all of the schools, and so anytime we're finding those kinds of issues, we're doing additional testing to ensure that we've got the right coverage on that.
And we've addressed those more systemically. We think they were reflective more of a systemic problem than those particular campuses. Obviously, we saw them across different grade levels of campuses and throughout. So like Brian said, we've met with the secretaries, but we've also had those conversations with principals. One of the things that we're classically poor at is elimination of old forms when we create new forms. We see it everywhere in every form, and I'm sure everybody does that, but that's something that we've really tried to go back now and scrub out those old forms to make people use the new ones. Hopefully we'll see that improvement as well, but we've addressed it on the principal level and on the financial secretary level as well. Because it's just and where the struggle occurs is we have all these conversations, and then you'll have a teacher that's leading a fundraiser or charity event or whatever it is, where they're now dealing with cash for the first time in their 10-year career, and they make a mistake because they never deal with that. So we have to be more proactive in getting to them. But for the most part, today compared to 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there's so little cash in the building, which really helps. The cash has almost all but gone away.
And you're
That's where-
auditing the high schools, which is going to be the
That's where
majority of
yeah.
the cash is going to be at anyway, and you do that every year.
Right, every year. Any other questions?
Okay. Yeah, can you go back to the IT audit
Sure.
scope slide? Wind up for you. And this audit program or proposed scope, this was something that was created in combination with Weaver? Okay.
Yes. So we sat down and we had their IT partner, talked to Terry Ross and made sure that they understood exactly what our systems are, what types of platforms we wanted to include in the scope. So we had great conversations, and they were able to put together some recommendations. Now, the one thing I will say about this is, since it hasn't been done since 2008, if they start finding a lot of issues, then they're going to have to expand,
Yeah.
their testing. And so it may actually end up be more hours, but we won't know until we get in and start the audit.
Does this include like penetration testing or, no? Okay.
No, for this one, this does not. Penetration testing, from what we were told by IT, was done more recently, was already done recently, so we're going to leverage that. Penetration testing is typically part of an IT security audit. So for this IT general controls, we usually call this our baseline. So especially since the last performance, 2008, these are kind of the typical general control areas that you want to look at for your key systems. So penetration testing, IT security would be kind of a recommendation for Brian to consider after you see the results from this audit. Maybe something the district wants to consider in the future, but definitely this will help you kind of see where those gaps are. This is a heavy design focus, so what we call the internal control design. So what are the design of controls around these areas? And so there was definitely healthy discussion we had with IT to kind of understand more about what is going on with user administration, change management, and so forth, so that we could help develop that scope. Definitely, if there is any kind of issues that arise, those will be informed with Brian immediately, and he can approve and determine what kind of expansion needs to occur.
So this is more on a tested design and not effectiveness?
There is some effectiveness testing.
Yeah.
It's going to be more limited to definitely meet. Definitely what we would do is a smaller sample size. So you're not going to take 30 transaction samples or so forth. This could be anywhere from 3 to 10, depending on how that control is set up. And definitely, if there is more issues in the lower sample size, there will be recommendations to expand that. There will be effectiveness testing, though. So, and that also includes, you talk about user administration, to look at user profiles and so forth to see, is there, for example, do we have active people in the directory that have left the district, that are moved departments, and their user profiles have not been changed. So there will be some effectiveness. It's more heavy on the design piece and some tests of effectiveness. It's just the sample sizes will be reduced. Really to meet, when we talk about the budget. So we want to be able to provide, if you do a full in-depth IT general controls, that could almost be the entire budget. So how do we be flexible to be able to provide this type of in-depth audit, but also meeting the budget constraints that are there. And so this one is design heavy, but there is test of effectiveness with more limited sampling.
When is this in your timeline? You're thinking like?
So this will be after the first of the year,
Okay,
so in January.
okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to approve the audit plan for 2021 and 2022?
So move.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we need to confirm our next meeting dates. Mr. Hayden, do you have that proposed?
I have a list of
For
them.
you? Okay. We've already done it.
So Wednesday, November 10th, Wednesday, January 12th, Wednesday, March 9th, and Wednesday, May 11th.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Godfrey.
Can you repeat that? I'm so
Yes.
sorry. Oh, thank you.
All right, any other comments, questions, discussion regarding our audit committee meeting? If not, we will adjourn that meeting then, and we will move to our investment committee meeting. Again, is there anyone who's registered to come and speak on behalf of anything regarding the investment committee? All right, we will consider action item 1 done. Next item is consider approval of the minutes of our prior meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval of minutes as presented.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moore.
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hubert. Any discussion? Not all in favor? All opposed? All right, motion carries. Receive investment review and results update. Good morning, Ms. Garza.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Sanders, members of the committee, and Dr. Knoll. It is my pleasure this morning to provide you an update to the investment portfolio for the 2020-2021 school year. So today we will be reviewing our current investment strategy, looking at our portfolio history from August 2017 through August of 2021, and then looking at the current composition of our portfolio, both for the general fund and for our combined portfolio, including all funds, and then any questions or comments that you may have. First off, our investment strategy. Our investment strategy is to invest current operating funds in the state pools with Wood Forest National Bank, in commercial paper and other short-term government securities with a maturity of 1 year or less. We have also allocated $50 million of our unassigned general fund balance with TCG Investment Advisors to create a 36-month investment ladder. This component of our investment strategy has proven to be very effective over the last 18 months as rates have plummeted. We have really maximized on being able to, lock in those rates on those longer term investments and with longer maturities, with higher yields, and in turn creating more revenue for us in the general fund. So this model has proven to be very effective for us. This is our general fund portfolio composition over the last 5 years from 2017 through 2021. And taking a closer look at 2021, in the light gray is our agencies at $15.4 million, representing 7.2% of our portfolio. In the yellow is our money market accounts with Wood Forest National Bank at $14.4 million, representing 6.8% of our portfolio. One thing to note about our money markets with Wood Forest, our new depository contract started September 1st, and through the RFP process, Wood Forest did offer us a very attractive rate on our money market account. Through that process, so we will be earning 25 basis points over the 90-day T-bill on the funds that we have in that money market account, so we will definitely be taking advantage of that rate going forward.
There is one stipulation with that. Wood Forest is limiting us to $60 million of deposits in the bank. They're not in need of cash deposit at this time. Previous years, they allowed us, I think we were up to $150 million, but right now they're holding us at that cap of $60 million in the bank. So we are going to take advantage of that because it is such a favorable rate to us. And hopefully at the end of the year, at the first of the year, maybe their need for cash deposits is up and we can up that $60 million to the $100 million, $150 million range.
All right, then moving on to the light blue on that graph is our municipal bonds, $26.5 million, representing 12.4% of our portfolio. And then our largest portion is the state pools at $145.6 million, represented in the green, and that's 68.3% of our portfolio. And then finally, our treasury notes in the navy blue at $11.2 million, representing 5.3% of our portfolio. So combined portfolio for the general fund, just over $213 million. This is our interest rate revenue over the last 5 years. Lots of movement on this slide, unfortunately, in the wrong direction. We are projecting year-to-date interest revenue in the general fund of just over $550,000. As you will recall, we did make a pretty significant reduction in our general fund interest revenue for the 21-22 school year of $1.6 million in anticipation of us remaining in this rate environment for the foreseeable future. This is our combined investment portfolio, including all funds, with the general fund, the debt service fund, our capital projects fund. As of August 31st, 2021, our total portfolio is just over $470 million. The largest portion of that, of course, in the state pools of $388.6 million. Treasuries at 11.3, our agencies at 15.4 million, money market at 28.4, and our municipal bonds at 26.5 million. We have a weighted average maturity for the entire portfolio of 55 days, yielding just over 17 basis points, and that's compared to our 90-day T-bill, which is at 0.04. So that rate for September for Wood Forest would be 29 basis points is what we're looking at for the money we have in those money market accounts. This is our benchmark analysis, the blue line representing our benchmark of the 90-day T-bill over the last 5 years compared to our combined portfolio at each fiscal year end. And again, at August of 2021, our portfolio is just over 17 basis points compared to the benchmark of 0.04. So if you have any questions or comments at this time?
Anyone? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Garza. Good morning, Mr. Rice.
Good morning. Yeah, on the next phase of this morning, we're just requesting that the investment committee approve the investment policy, both legal and local, and recommend to the board for approval. There have been no changes to the policy since last year. And at the regular September board meeting, we will ask the full board to approve the designated investment officers, our sources of instruction, our investment policy, and investment brokers. And none of these items have changed since last year either. So at this time, I request your approval.
Can I intercede 1 second?
Yes, ma'am.
You're only being asked to approve the local policy. The
Local's
legal-
Right, thank
Okay.
you very much, I appreciate
Yeah.
that, so we don't
Thank
have
you,
to
Gary.
worry about some abstentions.
Yeah.
All right, so we're being asked to just approve the local policy, investment policy.
Yes, sir.
That has had no changes whatsoever.
Has no changes. That is
All
correct.
right, any questions, comments, discussions? Nope. All right, all in favor? And all opposed. All right, thank you very much. And I think the next thing will be our next meeting sometime in September 22. Ms. Godfrey, do we have a date yet?
It will be the same date as the
Kinda
audit
timing.
committee meeting
Okay.
next year. So
Okay.
we'll set that in May, is what we normally do.
Sounds great. All right, to be determined. Any other comments, questions, discussions? We're adjourned. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you all very much.